All right, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We have a really exciting topic for you today. We're talking all about planned giving, and we have an exciting lineup of speakers who are going to be having a robust discussion all around the ins and outs of planned giving. So we know that you will get a lot of this out of this talk today. Before we get started, I've got a few housekeeping items. So I'm just going to run through those really quickly and then get you right into our discussion. Today's webinar is being recorded. So if you have to drop early, or you can only stay for a little bit, or if you wanted to go back and take a note about something that you just couldn't jot down quickly enough, we will be sharing that in your inbox, as well as some additional resources that we'll be discussing later on. And if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, we've got a really short turnaround today, just 30 minutes. So we have a few minutes at the end. We will be answering those questions live. And if not, we will be following up with you on email. And so we encourage you to utilize that Q&A box, whether or not you get your question answered live or not. With that out of the way, it's my pleasure to introduce our special guests. So first we have Kirsten Jasma, who has worked in the nonprofit fundraising world for over 30 years. She's currently the Senior Director of Development at Braille Institute, where she's responsible for direct response fundraising, gift and database administration, and donor experience. We also are excited to welcome Nicole Walton, and Nicole serves as the Director of Partner Success for FreeWill, and she has over 25 years of nonprofit experience in various areas of fundraising. And most recently, she spent 14 years at Make-A-Wish America. And for the last 7 of those years, she was the National Director of Planned Giving. She's been with FreeWill for over a year and excited about bringing her passion for accessible estate planning to the public, the impact of planned gift fundraising to nonprofit organizations all over the country. And so she's also based in Phoenix, Arizona, where she lives with her family. And so without any further ado, Dawn Galasso is going to be our facilitator, and Dawn has a rich history herself with working at Wealth Engine and a few other places, and has a really rich experience with digging into the data to learn all the insights about our donors that you want to know. So that's my part over with. Dawn, over to you.
Thank you so much, Leah. I am so excited to join with Nicole and Kirsten today. For those of you who have attended any of my webinars in the past, planned giving is probably one of my most favorite conversations to have. And it just so happens that talking with Kirsten and then separately talking with Nicole, we started to see how we could collaborate and share some of the how to build out or manage a planned giving program better. And so I would love to, I'm just so super excited. You guys are subject matter experts with rich experience. So Kirsten, I'm going to go to you first. And I'd love to know a little bit more about you, and for you to share with our people that are joining a little bit more about you, and then about the Braille Institute, because the Braille Institute's history when it comes to planned giving is quite unique, and it's just a fascinating story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Dawn. I appreciate it. Yeah, Braille Institute has been around for over 100 years, and our founder, Robert Atkinson, way at the beginning, understood the importance of legacy giving, and he provided folks with the opportunity to leave bequests to Braille Institute. So we are still reaping the success of that. We're known in LA and in Southern California for having a strong planned giving program, and I think that when we were talking earlier, I told you about someone who left us some oil and gas royalties, that the daughter of the gentleman who initially did that maybe 50 years ago just passed away. So we're still benefiting from those types of things. So like any organization, we need to become a little bit more relevant and a little more quickly, work a little bit more quickly when it comes to legacy giving. So that's why we've been really looking at the way we do business, and FreeWill is one of our partners.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then Nicole, can you share with us a little bit about your background at Make-A-Wish and now at FreeWill?
Sure. So at Make-A-Wish, I was really honored to be able to help stand up their national plan giving program. As with most organizations, plan giving tends to be one of the latter programs that's developed. And so the National Make-A-Wish program was kind of stood up in the late 2000 aughts. So around 2008, 2009 is when they really started to focus on it as a concerted effort. And I was fortunate to be there at the time and help make that progress or process come true. It's been great to be a part of Plan Giving. It truly is a passion for me. I love it. I think the opportunity to not only drive dollars into the hands of charity, but also that generational wealth transfer is so important. As Leah said, in my current role for FreeWill, it's been an amazing journey, and FreeWill was created to align with so much of what our nonprofits are doing and created tools to make estate planning easier, but with the understanding that basic human nature is good and we want to do good. And so we believe in that human instinct of doing good. And the goal of FreeWill is not only to create these tools, but to use them to drive funds into the charity's hands. So far, we've seen over $5 billion move into charities through commitments and real-time funds. And we're on our way, hopefully, to $1 trillion. And I hope to be with FreeWill when we hit that $1 trillion mark. So we're doing some amazing work with partners like the Braille Institute. Real quick in my role, so I work with about 30 strategists and another 10 content managers or content writers. And our job is really to make sure we're helping amazing organizations create strategies specific around plan giving and opening the door to the conversations that need to be had. So we don't see ourselves as replacing the work of gift officers by any means. In fact, we just add to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's the amazing thing about great technology now, that there is technology out there that can help our nonprofits enhance the relationships that they're building and not replace people within the organization. And one of the things before we continue on that Kirsten mentioned, and we talked about this the other day, is you brought up legacy. And, you know, for me, we talked about how, you know, planned giving, that's the nomenclature we use for this type of gift. But the reality is that I love the word legacy when it comes to this, because really this is about creating a legacy for the individual to provide in the future with something that they're passionate about. So I just love that word. So I just wanted to circle back around a little bit about that, because I do think that if we start to embrace some of the different, like, how do our donors see this type of a gift? They see it as a legacy, right? That's they don't understand what a planned gift is for the most part. They feel like it's a legacy gift. So I love to use that word. So when you thought of it, I was like, ding, ding, ding in my brain. Hey, yeah, I just want to bring that up. And so, you know, Kirsten, to go back to you, when we start to think about either implementing a plan giving program or strategy or improving upon that strategy, talk to me about some of the things that you think are important to concentrate on, whether it's from a cultural perspective or anything, as we start to make those improvements or start that type of a program.
Well, I think you can't bite off more than you can chew. Plan giving or legacy giving, you can go a lot of ways with it. Back in the day, gift annuities were a big deal. You've got people who have trusts. And then there's bequests that come to your organization. And that's as simple as putting sample bequest language on the back of your business card or on your website. I think you need to determine what area you need to go to, but you also need to look at who your constituency is. You can't make any assumptions that you've got folks that are at the level of making a legacy gift or even thinking about it. At the Braille Institute, we're fortunate we have some built-in constituencies. We've got our library patrons, folks who have lost their vision or have no vision who use our services at the library. We also have folks who come in for low vision consultations. So they're ripe for this type of thing as they're older in their life. So you really need to determine what types of data you want to look at, look with your constituencies, and just how fast you want to go. And then also, you don't have to be an expert about everything. And that's where, partnerships or solutions out there really do help you out. It makes sure that your team has the same nomenclature that they're using. They're not experts at everything in there. This is something Nicole said yesterday, that they're experts at your mission, not an expert in writing a bequest or in tax law. That's where you need to determine what kind of partners you have out there.
Yeah. And you mentioned something the other day about demystifying the language even around planned giving, and that, planned giving is a little bit more of a delicate potential topic than some of the other topics. So talk to me a little bit about how you create a common conversation and to make gift officers, and those, not even the gift officers, I think you mentioned you even have, because you've got these programs, you even have people that are interacting with people through the programming that need to be able to have those conversations. So how do you get them comfortable with to be able to have those conversations?
Well, we really use some online solutions that help us make sure that our messaging is consistent, right? We use Crescendo for our website. So our gift officers can refer folks to the website to learn about the different types of gifts. Then, as I said earlier, our gift officers can really be experts in the mission and help people plan what their legacy will go towards. And also, it's making sure that our team has the right language at hand too for on their signature line of their email. One neat thing that we've done with our gift team is we've got a FreeWill blurb on it, where you can get started on your will for free by clicking here. Well, that gets the conversation started. It kind of demystifies it, and someone can then learn about it on their own time, because it is overwhelming to think about your passing and having that conversation. But if you can provide a tool that opens the door, I think that makes it a lot easier. Someone will be more willing to then take that next step and discuss it and do follow-up. And our partnership with FreeWill also makes it easy, because we'll get data back, and then we can start that stewardship process if someone has identified that they've left Braille Institute in their estate plan. So there are ways to, I don't want to say tiptoe around it, but it's not like a major gift where you're working towards that $100,000. You're doing the dance. You're making sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. Here you can kind of move towards the conversation, which is a lot easier for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, from your experience, do you have anything that you'd like to add? I know we talked a little bit and Kirsten mentioned a little bit about the whole mission thing, but I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more on what that means from the standpoint of even from expertise within the organization.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I am a firm believer. Having been in planned giving, I agree with everything Kirsten is saying about you're moving conversations forward. It's not quite the same. It doesn't have quite the same kind of a timeline that we often see when we're talking about a major gift or a campaign, a cash gift toward a campaign. But what I always, share with folks is, especially for gift officers who might be a little hesitant because they don't feel like experts in the space of planned giving. And I think the common fear is folks are going to ask me questions I can't answer about taxes. At the end of the day, as a gift officer, we are charged with being experts on our missions. That's what we are experts in. We are experts in working with people, helping our mission serve people's legacy giving needs. And those people are at the table. So I always, want to remind folks who are working in that space of gift officer, be a mission expert. But don't be afraid to let these conversations happen. Use the opportunity to follow up, get more information, and drive them to the resources that can help them in their planning. Because at the end of the day, most of the time, many of our nonprofits, we're going to encourage folks to be working with their financial advisors or their attorneys anyway. So we don't have to be the experts in their intimate financial situation. We just have to understand how our missions align with their interest in building their legacy. And that's what our gift officers are doing. That's what gift officers are doing every single day.
And I love that. Yeah, I love that. I think, and that's where, coming from a data analytics background, that's where, for me, aligning the mission with how they want to serve and what they want to leave as a legacy is data can help with all of that as well, right? So understanding what's important to them, because a lot of our nonprofits, they're raising money, and what one person's giving for might be quite different than what another person's giving for, right? So, and so because of that, it's really important to understand each of those donors and understand your mission and how your mission meets the donors' passions, right? So the more you can be a subject matter expert on your own nonprofit, the better you're going to be able to serve across many groups, not just one particular group. And we're going to talk about data here in a second, but I'm just going to tell a funny little story about how this whole thing came together. And that is, at the end of last year, I actually got an annual appeal from one of my local nonprofits that I've supported in the past. And I'm in that age range of will writing. And so they sent me out this little card, and it was like, hey, would you please provide your annual gift? And oh, by the way, if you haven't written a will, here's a service that can help you with their will, FreeWill. I might have heard of it before, but I didn't really put the 2 and 2 together on it. And I went back to Leah and I said, Leah, this is brilliant. This is so I'm telling you from a personal experience that this type of thing actually works. It gets those donors in the right, who are at the right time, intrigued about taking some steps forward about what should I be doing. I will also say that coming out of COVID, people, because of everything that happened with COVID, are much more aware of a need for a will than they ever were before. So the hesitancy needs to be, we need to get past the hesitancy of those conversations. And that's the reason why we need to help our gift officers with understanding how to communicate with them, because these things are happening whether we feel comfortable with them or not. And so we need to kind of get more comfortable with them because of the fact that they're happening. So when we talk about data and how we can make decisions based on data points that we see, Kirsten, tell me what you guys focus on internally when it comes to people who would look like good plan givers.
Well, it's the run of the mill, someone who's given for a set amount of time, 10 years or more. Sometimes you can go down to 5 years or more based on giving, but it's someone who's got a strong connection to the organization. You look at your monthly donors, your EFT donors, folks who have made that effort to renew without stopping when the credit card expires, where they've continued to give. And it's also looking at what data points to capture in your database. As I said earlier, you can't make assumptions that you have what you need in your data. You need to keep track of things in order to do those data analytics. At Braille Institute, we've got, we recently did a conversion, and we brought over, I must say, about 50 years worth of data, which is awesome because we have that history. We can look at how long someone's been giving. And we have really been working hard over the last few years to up our digital giving. So we've been importing in and asking for emails, because you can't do anything, can't send out emails if you don't have email addresses. So we've really made strides in building our email list, which is helpful, especially with FreeWill, because they provided us with and they continue to provide us with email copy, UTMs, things where we can track things. And then that gives us data to go off of the next time, because we know, oh, these people opened it up. That's good to know. They may think this is interesting. So I will do a resend to them from a gift officer, because I know blah, 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 blah. I know they're in Southern California. I know they're in Santa Barbara, San Diego, whatever. So it's just really getting to know your data and capturing things. And, the other thing, we have 3 databases here at Braille Institute. but we're good at getting the information from the other two databases and then sending out information to them. So we're incorporating them into ours, and then making sure that we're keeping all the data up to date.
Yeah, because you've got programs, and then you've got donors.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's interesting to see, do you guys track people who are converts from what so do you look at those that might have been a program person and now have converted to a donor?
And that's a data capture that we just started doing in the last few years. Our library patrons, you know, if someone is a library patron, we do note them at that is their BIA connection, is library patron or student or volunteer. So we're looking at that, because then that helps with segmentation down the road too, because I'm going to want to send out something to library patrons that probably sounds a little different than to a general donor, because it's someone who has used our services, and I can at least make sure that copy can speak to them instead of this wide net. So yeah, we do participation types. We keep track of what area that people live in, like Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara. So again, we can talk about Braille Institute in more of a community sense.
Yeah, and even things like doing easy lookalike modeling, right? So you can go and you can look at, hey, most of my converts are, you know, women between the age of 45 and 65 with this wealth level and this, and then look at the rest of those program people that fit that same mold, and make an assumption that they're going to be more likely to become plan givers than the rest of the group. So you can be really targeted in your focus and not go wide, but be more focused on a group that should convert more quickly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Nicole.
And then having the tool like FreeWill, it can, we've got the expert copy, the expert way of doing it. So then we are looked at as an expert in that, which is helpful too.
Yeah, I think so. And Nicole, I'd love for you to add anything on, but I do think that this is more of you need to seem like it's a little bit more of a subject matter expert when it comes to plan giving than some of the other things potentially, because even though you're not replacing a tax person or you're not replacing an attorney or whoever, you're still kind of in that role of moving them towards that. So my instinct would be that you would want to make sure that you have that professional tone, and having something that is pre-done for you to make you feel like you're a subject matter expert, even if you aren't, could be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So we do work very closely. We have our content reviewed. Our goal is that our partners can depend on what they receive from us, so that when they're sharing it with donors, they do have that sense of confidence. Again, we're not giving tax information and tax recommendations, so we're not going to cross that line, and we're not going to encourage our partners to do that. But I do feel the copy that we provide, the content that we provide, it accomplishes exactly all the goals that Kirsten talked about. Being able to segment lists, we're going to help drive copy or create copy that's going to speak to each of those. And of course, you know, Kirsten is going to get the message the best. We're going to do what we can to get it there. And then it's going to, you know, have some opportunity for edit from that perspective. But we're going to, you know, create copy for different segments of donors, really trying to understand who's receiving the message, so that we're hitting the right tone. The one thing I just wanted to say, in addition, as we're thinking about who we talk about, and, you know, again, no surprise, I agree with everything that Kirsten has shared and everything you've said so far. The only other group I would call out that, you know, sometimes we don't think about as quickly are what I used to refer to as frequent donors, not monthly donors, but the folks who would strike a check every now and then, every month, every other month, every time they had a birthday in their life. Their chosen charity of choice for a tribute gift is, you know, your organization. Those folks who would give, I used to always say, you know, the people who give when we forget to ask. Those are the people we want to look at. They might not be monthly donors, but they're thinking of us at times we might not have expected it. And so those are the people we want to look at. Their number, their frequency of giving might not look the same, But if they're thinking of us every other month, every time a family member has a birthday, every 3 or 4 months even, they're thinking of us even outside of the periods when we're asking. We really want to get in front of them as gift officers. That's a great group to get in front of. And from a content and a cultivation perspective, those are the people we want to get these messages in front of.
That's great. And it leads me to like an aha moment in this conversation. And that is, having done data analytics for a decade, historically, the focus has been on capacity and age when it comes to planned giving prospects. And we have not talked about either of them. So, you know, what I want to point out here is that capacity and age are probably two of the least important data points when it comes to planned giving. The capacity definitely is not something that we should be focused on. And to your other point, whether it's a monthly donor or a frequent donor, if we're looking at RF recency and frequency, what we don't want to ignore is that person that might have dropped off for a year and then came back, and so their frequency goes down. So there's definitely a methodology behind it. And the other thing is, and we talked about this the other day, is that it's so funny because when you think about some of your best planned givers are your monthly givers, those givers who maybe have given to you monthly for the past, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. And the interesting thing is that when you think about all of your fundraising strategies, they all kind of blend together into identifying opportunities when it comes to things like this. So if you're not doing a good job stewarding either frequent gifts or those monthly gifts, you're missing an opportunity to steward a planned gift in the future, because that's who we're going to identify potentially as those better candidates. And so when you think about it from a holistic standpoint from fundraising, we need to do as good a job as we can, whether it's making sure our donors don't lapse, because when they lapse, then they fall out and all of a sudden they're not going to potentially be a planned giver, or do they stop being a monthly giver? All of a sudden, then they become less likely to be a planned giver. And so there's this whole kind of relationship that goes across the fundraising strategy as a whole. And sometimes we get really siloed into thinking, okay, we're going to fuel this one and we're going to fuel that one, but they actually all are intertwined between each other. So that's awesome. And then, just kind of as a wrap up, and we talked a lot about what you guys do from a FreeWill perspective, and we want to give a couple of minutes for questions. So before I do that, Leah, if you want to, because I know we're running a little bit short on time, we want to talk a little bit about the resources that we're going to be sending out afterwards. So, we appreciate everybody joining, but I want to make sure that you know that we're sending out in the follow-up some free resources to you guys. We're actually going to send out into your inbox. We're going to send out a recording of this. You can share with your colleagues or anybody that you think might benefit from it. FreeWill has been wonderful and has provided us their 2021 planned giving report. It is chock full of information. You have to look at it, whether it's the different age groups that they're tracking on when they're writing planned gifts, whether they have children in the home, what types of planned gifts that people are giving. I found it amazingly informational. So please make sure you look at that. And then we're going to be sending you out a video on how GivingDNA helps nonprofits identify planned givers through their internal behavior to the organization, things we just talked about, like recency and frequency of giving. And we can help narrow that, who those individuals are, for you to focus on that outbound strategy. So at this point, Leah, here's some more free resources. And then if you're interested in having any more of a conversation with myself, you can just scan my QR code. If you'd like to talk to either Nicole or Kirsten, we have their email addresses here. So feel free to contact either of them with their rich background of knowledge. And Leah, just for a minute or two, want to see, or do we have any questions that came up?
We had one person that asked a question, but it wasn't all that specific. And so if anybody else has had some questions come to mind, we've got about a minute or two, or we can answer those. But while we're waiting to see if any questions come in, Kirsten or Nicole, do you have any kind of parting thoughts with our audience today?
Don't try to be an expert at everything. You can choose what hats to wear. And I think looking at partners out there that can give you solutions really makes a difference.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And I would say, make sure the conversation gets started. It's not going to happen in a single setting, but we need to get the conversation started, and think of legacy giving as that. Think of it as legacy giving and future planning, not planning for an end.
Oh, that's great. Love that, Nicole.
Yeah. All right. We had a few questions come in. So Lisa wants to know, how is FreeWill best used? Might be helpful to have a little bit more context there, but if you had to make a guess at what they're getting at, how would you answer that?
Well,
it's a great,
it is a good question. And as someone who uses it, I'll just let you finish it up then, Nicole. We use it to the best of our abilities. We use it for emails, we use it for copywriting, and we use it to get the word out and to start the conversation.
Yeah, and I would just add, it should be part of a more comprehensive program. It can be the beginning of a program or part of a larger program. And it should be used to not only start the conversations within your donor base, but we also have opportunities to do some of that acquisition work. So I would say, again, use it as a tool to start the conversations, get the word out, to cast that broader net, and let the gift officers do the work once those folks are coming into the house.
All right, I've got one question I want to save for the end because it ties into our actually next webinar series. But Andrea would like to know, for a one-person team, where would you recommend to start?
It's a great question. I think I would need a little more information. One-person team and where to start. Does that mean you don't have a program? It means you have a program and you're trying to get to the next level. So I think I would need a little more information. Yeah. But my gut says, make sure you're having these conversations, because what I've seen is when you can have a couple wins, it makes it much easier to get the investment to build a program. So if you're working with 15 donors, make sure all 15 donors are hearing about the opportunities for legacy giving. If you're working with 100, if you're sending emails, make sure you're giving these options around legacy giving.
Yes, yes. All right, so the last question I think we have time for today, and then I saw a few more come in, and we'll be following up with everybody as long as we've got your email address. We had a question around monthly giving and building out your sustaining strategies for engaging those monthly donors to cultivate a planned giving conversation. I'd love for I think, Kirsten, for you to answer that from your perspective. But then just a little plug here, we are going to be launching a webinar series on sustaining giving in May. So I'm sure planned giving will be one of the topics that we discuss in that series. So you can keep an eye out for that invite in your inbox. But Kirsten, how would you respond to someone who wants to convert that monthly donor to a planned giver?
Well, I think what you need to do is really share the information. Here at Braille Institute, we try to make it easy for people to make gifts and for people to ask questions. We make sure that we have things on our website that's important. And converting someone, it's really using the tools that FreeWill has. It's sending the emails. It's using something on your signature to just get the ball rolling and get people comfortable with talking about it. I think, Dawn talked about demystifying it, and it does demystify it if you've got on your email signature, start my will for free by clicking here. You see that someone will take that step and take a look at it. And then with the analytics on the back end of FreeWill, you at least have an idea of who is interested in it, and you can start that conversation. And then you look at those monthly donors and see, you know what, these folks might be good for that. It's just getting the word out and getting the conversation started.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone who tuned in today. I think we went a little bit over time, but I'm appreciative of everyone who stuck around. Just one more thank you everybody for joining, and thank you to Kirsten and Nicole for their time today.
Thank you guys so much. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.